Are you ready for it? Canon's R5 is being released in a couple of days. And so I'm back, and I'm back on the eve of the release of Canon's new EOS R3. So why am I back now? Well, I can tell you why. Because I intend on buying the EOS R3 so I can review it here on the channel. And my goals for this camera are a little bit different than my usual goals for a camera. Usually when I buy a camera, as you all know, I'm very heavily into the cinema side of things, the video aspect, but on this particular camera, I think I'm going to be leaning 70% stills and somewhere to the order of about 30% video. And depending on how it does, that may change. But I've been really leveraging the RED cameras to do a lot of my video related things. So I'm thinking that my goal for this Canon is probably going to be more to utilize it in a stills capacity, which is great because I'm excited about things like the animal autofocus, which I know the EOS R5 had, but again, that had issues for me in my usage. I noticed that when I would use it in an environment such as this, that it would have a tendency to overheat, and that caused problems for me. So I kind of needed to get rid of it, which is what I did. Now, when it comes to the EOS R3, I don't expect, with a body that size and with the experience that Canon has had with putting out cameras that overheat, I would be shocked if this camera overheats. So I don't think it will. And I think that that may also explain why Canon chose to be a little more conservative, choosing instead of a 45 megapixel sensor, but instead to go with a 24.1. That's the latest number, and I think it's actually an official number, 24.1 megapixel sensor. And this means that we could probably expect 6K RAW, which is great. I mean, I honestly think that 6K RAW is a sweet spot between 4K and 8K, because 8K, unless you have a monster of a machine really churning out those renders, it can be a bit much. So for me, a lot of the stuff that I tend to do, I do in camera. So I'm not really that concerned about huge graphic loads on my computer when it comes time to actually edit. But the problem that I have is that when the edit is rather complex and you have these very heavy files, huge bit rates, like is quite often the case on 8K footage, it just becomes a bit much. So for me, I don't really need 8K. It's not something that I have to have. If I don't have it, I won't cry. If I have it and it doesn't hurt me, sure, I'll be okay with it, but it's not a must-have push piece for me. But what is that I have a decent higher resolution. So if I'm going to get 4K, I want it to be an oversampled 4K, much like what the RED does, much like what the EOS R could do in its EOS R5 could do in its highest quality mode, but without the overheating, because nobody needs that kind of thing in their life. So I'm hoping that the R3 brings all of this into one package, which is a competent still shooter. First and foremost for me, a competent still shooter, because that is my primary focus with this camera, and that it is somewhat capable on the video front without having to worry about little niggles like, oh, it overheats and now I have to shut my camera off. I know that they got a lot better over time with the R5, but let's be honest, it's not exactly the same as using a video camera that you can turn it on and run it for hours, like I do with my Reds, like I do with my Sonys, and any other video camera, including the C class cinema line of the Canon cameras, which I am able to run for hours on end, rather. So that's what I'm excited about. Are you excited about this camera? When I get it in, and I'm hoping to get it in soon, as soon as it comes out, which is probably by November, I would imagine. What do you want to see tested? Because that's going to be my focus, is trying to figure out what's important to you. I'm going to try and use it in a real world setting and see exactly what I can do with it, and both for stills and for video. So please let me know what's important to you, and I will catch you next time.